quality sales event is on. Get 0% APR for up to 66 months plus $1,000 bonus cash on the sleek Optima and Optima Hybrid. Backed by our 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Hurry into your local Kia retailer today.
So, Nomi, I know you were at the convention last week in Philadelphia as a delegate, as a Sanders delegate from New York State, and you have been very involved in not just the Sanders campaign, broadly speaking, but in the specifically in the sort of the development of the platform and watching that fight. Give me a sense, I mean, leading up to day one, what was happening for those people? Because I don't know how much reporting there really has been of just how much dissent there was, particularly on that day one. I mean, I was in Philadelphia, and there was a palpable sense of this could very well be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you're right there. Leading up to it, you can kind of sense these things, actually through social media of all places. I think that because the mass media is not generally reporting on what's happening on the ground, people have been going to social media. So I can always kind of gauge the temperature of the movement by my Twitter. And also just being on the delegate listserv, seeing what people are planning behind the scenes and talking about. Some of the ideas are really creative and inspirational and great acts of civil disobedience. Some of them were a little out there, like let's burn the house down. So I knew leading into the convention that there was going to be a lot of energy flowing in different directions, as there is right now. I think that, when we've been making this case, there's a Washington Post article about me yesterday last week for the listeners who are listening, making the case for how we as surrogates, some of us surrogates for the campaign, were trying to send this message to the Clinton campaign saying that if the movements are not taken seriously and not included, really included beyond the unity rhetoric, it could actually hurt Clinton in a lot of these swing states where the numbers come down to 3%, 4%, where, for activists who are single issue voters, they don't turn out for Clinton, that could cost her the election, or TPP voters. So I think, leading into the convention, you saw a lot of the energy going in different directions, and the more the DNC tried to talk about inclusivity and unity, rather than displaying it, I think that the tensions grew higher and higher, and that put us in a position as movement leaders, surrogates, to really trying to bridge that gap. And we're seeing that now. I think that I actually do think that the Clinton campaign is taking that very seriously.
Well, what does that inclusivity look like? I mean, because one of the things that, from my perspective, and I think it's no secret that I was a supporter of Bernie Sanders, and this is someone I've been interviewing on this and other programs for almost a dozen years now. But I mean, one of the things that I saw at the convention was, and I think to a certain extent this was happening with the Sanders campaign, was that things of that issues that went from sort of like a process developed, it became more sort of personal than issue oriented, and I mean, give me your sense of that. I mean, does that strike you in any way?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the DNC, there's sort of two things happening at once. Obviously, Bernie Sanders became a vehicle for several different movements, his campaign, and so grateful for that because all these, it's almost like we're reaching a tipping point, a boiling point for these movements, and he was a vehicle, given it's an election year, and he took it to the convention. So there were a lot of movement leaders, whether it was union leaders who are against TPP, or Black Lives Matter leaders who are out there protesting around the convention, or Democracy Spring who are calling for fair elections and clean elections. There's so many different groups there, and I think that the process that was the email leaks, for instance. The email leaks added fuel to all these movements, right? And it fired them up more, and it made them want to make a difference in the process of the Democratic National Convention. So on the floor in New York, where we were right in front. It was no secret secret. Even mainstream media reported on signs being taken away from delegates. A lot of these delegates were movement leaders. So the process that took place behind closed doors, the rules committee, or on the floor when the DNC tried to control the narrative and through the television cameras by suppressing a lot of the different movements, I think that only made these movement leaders more upset. So it was like the collision of issues-based movements and just like how the DNC conducts itself. And I think there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, there was conflation between the Hillary campaign, the Clinton campaign, and the DNC and who was doing what. In the New York delegation, I think some of it was even Cuomo. So there's a lot of blame being thrown in different directions. But bottom line is, I think what's most important for all of these different establishment folks to understand is that this is half of the party. So this is arguably more than half the party, because I think there were some Hillary people who even agree with some of the stuff that we were representing, but for other reasons we're supporting Hillary. So, being inclusive is really understanding the pain that people are going through. There were delegates there who, I was campaigning in California with some of the surrogates a month ago for the California primary, and, we went to people's homes where there were no election headquarters in those cities. So they opened up their homes and paid out of their pocket, out of their savings, and they created their own walk sheets and organized. And then they had GoFundMe pages to become delegates. And they were sharing rooms with 5 people. One guy walked up to me, who's a lawyer and has 2 kids, and he said, I am here and I'm really frustrated over the rules committee because I'm a lawyer and I know how to negotiate. I don't feel like we're negotiating when I couldn't afford a nanny for my kids. And I came here expecting the ability to have my voice heard when we're not on the floor, we're not voting, when the Rules Committee basically surrendered to a lot of different things. The Platform Committee decided not to submit their minority report. So I think the Clinton campaign and the DNC needs to understand these are people who have struggles, and they're there because they have no other option. They want to make a difference, and they feel like the establishment has ignored them.
And so I want to talk about give me your sense of how you would grade them. I mean, what specifically? Because certainly, the day the convention started out with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who I think, is. It appeared to me that nobody had really no constituency. I would say even arguably within the Clinton campaign. But this is someone who I think there was a lot of sort of punting of the problem, more or less. But it exploded on Monday morning when theoretically a 2-to-1 Hillary Clinton delegate meeting basically booed her off the stage. Later that day, Bernie Sanders was booed by his own delegates because he was talking about the endorsement of Hillary Clinton. I mean, what was it that turned that around? Was that first step of basically getting Debbie Wasserman Schultz out of Pennsylvania, the sort of step one?
I don't know if it ever turned around. I think that the media may have projected it to turn around, but I just think that they became better at controlling the audience. And I know what happened the day the day after the walkout, and I think the walkout was larger than it was reported because I went back in. I stayed at the convention center to go do some media, and then I walked back in to see how many people were left. I walked all throughout the convention center, and I could only find one person that was a Bernie person because Bernie, everybody dresses their part. They wear the buttons, they do the signs, and there was one guy in front holding his Bernie sign proud during Bill Clinton's speech.
We should tell people this is day 2, was when the walkout, and people walked, just so that they understand, there were 2 structures, multiple structures. There was the main structure, which is actually the arena, sort of like, a basketball arena, and then next to it there's a series of media tents where people, a number, hundreds at the very least, of Bernie delegates basically got up, left, walked into those media tents. Nomi, let's take a break and let's pick it up from there and get a sense of whether that was some type of turning point, and particularly a turning point in terms of not so much as to whether or not things changed in the minds of the delegates, but also whether or not things changed in the minds of the Clinton people, whether or not there were like tangible means in which they tried to include those Bernie delegates. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back on Ring of Fire Radio.